Ladies and gentlemen, the Alabama Senate will now come to order. Our prayer today will be delivered by Pastor Gary Harden of First Baptist Church of Senate. Pastor Harden is a guest of Senator Jones. Pastor Harden.
You'll bow your heads with me, please. Lord, I pray today for the members of the Alabama State Senate Group. I ask you to reveal yourself to them, bring them closer to you, and to one another. Speak to them, truth, integrity, justice and fairness, and lead them to seek the good of Alabamians. Keep our senators grounded in what is good and true. Protect them from the temptations and distractions of power and influence. May they know and follow you, leading you. For those who may have suffered recent deaths in their families, I ask you to give comfort. For those who are single parents, I ask you to give them the ability to balance their time and energy for the benefit of themselves and their children. And I ask that each member of their families would know they are valued and loved by you. We are thankful today that we have been given the privilege to live in this nation and state, and may we be worthy of that privilege. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Harden. Today, the pledge will be led by Senate Intern Alex Martinez.
Attention, salute, pledge.
All right, thank you. Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Allen, Mr. Barfoot, Mr. Beasley, Mr. Bell, Mr. Butler, Mr. Conley, Mr. Chambliss, Mr. Chasteen, Ms. Coleman, Ms. Coleman-Madison, Mr. Elliott, Ms. Figures, Mr. Gavan, Mr. Gudger, Mr. Hatcher, Mr. Hovey, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Livingston, Mr. Melson, Mr. Orr, Mr. Price, Mr. Reed, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Schofield, Mr. Sessions, Mr. Shellnut, Mr. Singleton, Mr. Smitherman, Mr. Stewart, Mr. Stutz, Mr. Wagner, Ms. Weaver, Mr. Williams.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have 29 senators present, which is a quorum. The Senate is ready to transact business.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move that we excuse absent senators.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move that we approve the journal from the previous legislative day.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Now move on to introduction of bills. At this time, I'd like to recognize several different groups. First group, when I call your name, if you could please stand, that's in the gallery. The Alabama Federation of Republican Women, if you could please stand. Welcome to Alabama Senate. Great to have you all today. Next group that I'd like to recognize in the gallery, the Alabama Association of Realtors. If y'all could please stand. Thank y'all for being here. Welcome to Alabama Senate.
Mr. President.
All right, Senator,
If I could have a moment of personal privilege,
you're recognized.
I appreciate you introducing the realtors, but I got a special realtor that I like to stand. So if Tanya Smitherman is up there, I want you to stand up and raise your hand.
All right, Tanya Smitherman, if you're in the gallery, if you could please stand.
Let me see, where are you? Where the hand? She didn't show up. Oh, she's absent. Well, she's still somewhere in the hall trying to talk to folks. When she come, I'll move back to you, Mr. Chairman. All right, but she's with the realtors, and I'm just when she comes, I get a chance to see her when she get here. Thank you very much.
Senator Smitherman, real quick before you leave, I just wanted to say, pretty historic week coming up in your city in Birmingham with Auburn and Alabama playing in the NCAA tournament. So that's exciting.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I'm going to tell you.
Hey, great work on getting the NCAA back to Alabama. So excited. Last time I went there, I think was in 1996 when I was in high school. So great work.
Thank you very much. We appreciate all you all support as well. Without all of us, we couldn't have never got it there.
All right, thank you.
So thank you too.
All right, now move on to House messages. I believe we had. You do the resolution.
Mr. President.
Message from the House. Mr. President, the House of Representatives has originated and adopted the following House Joint Resolution and ordered same sit forthwith to the Senate. House Joint Resolution number 16 by Representative Ingram, celebrating the life of Mr. James Winfrey Wilson III. Signed, John Treadwell, Clerk.
Yes, Mr. President, if I could ask for suspension of the rules and have that resolution read at length.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Secretary, read this at length, please.
House Joint Resolution number 16, celebrating the life of Mr. James Winfrey Wilson III. Whereas it is with profound sorrow that we note the death on March 11, 2023 of Mr. James Winfrey, Jim Wilson III, at the age of 59. He was an Alabama business titan, philanthropist, and civic leader, as well as a beloved and adored husband, father, grandfather, and friend. And whereas Mr. Wilson was born on June 14, 1963 to Winona Wilson and James Winfrey Jim Wilson Jr. And whereas Mr. Wilson earned a degree in business administration from the University of Alabama in 1985, where he was a member of the Sigma Alpha Epsilon fraternity. Following college, he moved to New York City, where he worked in commercial real estate at Manufacturers Hanover and met his wife, Susie Forrest Wilson. They were united in holy matrimony on September 26, 1987 in Rye, New York. And whereas a dynamic leader, some of Mr. Wilson's notable achievements throughout his lifetime included serving as chairman and chief executive officer of Jim Wilson and Associates, a Montgomery-based real estate and investment firm with a far-reaching presence across the United States, where he, along with his brother, successfully expanded the firm and built upon the legacy of its founder and their father, James Winfrey Jim Wilson Jr., developing several notable real estate projects such as River Chase Galleria in Birmingham, the Mall of Louisiana in Baton Rouge, and East Chase in Montgomery. Serving on the Board of Trustees of the University of Alabama, where he was chair of the Athletics Committee and president of the University of Alabama Birmingham Hospital Authority, and serving on various other boards. And whereas Mr. Wilson was preceded in death by his father, he is survived by his wife of 35 years, Susie Forrest Wilson, daughters Lillian Pascal and Wesley Klingman, mother, siblings, Elizabeth Hunter, Winston Reese, and Will Wilson, and grandchildren, J.W. Pascal, Nate Pascal, Lucy Klingman, Wynn Klingman, and Fully Klingman. And whereas although his presence will be greatly missed, the memory of Mr. Wilson will be cherished in the hearts of all who knew and loved him. He will be remembered for his unrivaled charisma, unfiltered humor, and unfettered love for his family and friends. He was kind, fun, boisterous, and like his father, an expert in the art of celebration. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the legislature of Alabama, both houses thereof concurring, that the death of Mr. James Winfrey Jim Wilson III is recorded with deep sadness, and this resolution is offered in tribute to his life, along with heartfelt sympathy to his family, whose grief is shared by many.
All right, Senator Barfoot.
Mr. President, move for immediate adoption of HJR 16.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution is adopted. Thanks, Senator Barfoot. All right, now move on to motions and, committee reports. We don't have any committee reports, correct? All right, now move on to motions and resolutions.
Mr. President, got a resolution?
All right, Secretary Reed received the resolution.
FJR. It's an FJR name. State Bridge.
Senate Joint Resolution number 4 by Senator Allen, designating the bridge on McFarland Boulevard that spans Interstate 20 and Interstate 59 as the Luther Stancil Pate III Memorial Bridge.
Mr. President,
Senator Allen.
I move for immediate adoption.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Senator Allen. Senator Wagner, Senator Smithman,
That's good company. If you change my name to that, I'll live with it and be proud of it.
Yeah.
I'm back at that moment again. She's up there, and I just want to introduce her to everyone.
Okay, all right, you're recognized.
All right. At this time, I gave a false alarm last time, but she's up there now, so I'm introducing my daughter to y'all. She's with the realtors, so if she'll stand up, that's my oldest daughter, Tanya Smithman.
All right, Tanya, welcome to the Alabama Senate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Smithman. All right, Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, I have a report from the Committee on Rules.
All right, Secretary Reed received the report from the Committee on Rules, please.
From the Committee on Rules, Senate Resolution number 5, Special Order Calendar. Be it resolved by the Senate that the following bills in the order name shall be the special, paramount, and continuing order of business, taking precedence over all other matters until disposed of for the third legislative day only. On page 1 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 1 by Senators Albritton and others relating to supplemental appropriations.
Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, move adoption of the report from the Committee on Rules.
All right, Secretary, I call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chastain. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
Thirty ayes, 1 nay. The special order calendar is adopted. Secretary, call the first bill.
On page 1 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 1 by Senator Albritton and others relating to appropriations. BR pending.
Senator Gudger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to take a moment just to talk about as far as the funding in this bill, but also talk about another bill that we've been working on for the last 2 years. And part of that bill has been a problem and has been something that has affected each and every one of us over the past few years. And with help of people in this body, with help from people that's in this galley today, family stories, individual stories, I can truly say that it has gone to a point where the bill that we passed, which is known as the Harold Sachs bill, has grown into something that we aren't able to have the best bill possible as we go forward. And so I've been looking back at this particular bill of how we're able to, as a body, come and bring something that updates this particular information and how it affects all of us as we go forward. We've all been together, and all of us have a story, whether that is somebody that's in this particular body, about how that affects your loved ones. Whether that's your wife, your grandmother, your grandfather, your child, any one of your friends and relatives. And there's been people that's been in the hospitals and healthcare facilities that have changed the way that their outlook on the future of their family once someone deceases and goes forward, whether that's not only just at the end of life, but also childbirth and different areas through this whole bill. I want to read you a story that comes up that talks about the Sox family and one of our own, Harold Sox, that had passed away, and some of the words that were used by his own wife, Bonnie Sox, says, "I know that if Harold was here today, he would say, 'Don't live in fear. Don't let this grip you. Be cautious, be careful, but carry on your life,' Bonnie said and pointed out. Harold lived his entire life to leaving a legacy, and Christ led life for their family and for this state and gave service as we went forward. And as we go forward, the bill that we have passed now has grown into something that we can't control in certain situations where we're able to go in and see our loved ones before their end of life. And it's time to change that particular bill. I think all of us has a story as we, like I said, go forward. And I've got testimonies of 52 different people that have sent me their story that wanted me to talk about it. Obviously, I've got just a few minutes to be able to talk about this particular bill, so I can't go through all 52. But they range from young to old, to black to white, from rural to urban, from the coastal regions to the wiregrass, to north central Alabama, to the Black Belt, to the industrial area up in Huntsville. As we move forward through any pandemic, it's always hard on every family. But without family engagement next to your loved one, they can't feel, they can't see us, and they feel like they're alone. By having your loved one next to you in a patient's room, they feel the love and the strength of their family that's still with them. It helps them grow, and it helps them continue to get better mentally, emotionally, and physically. And as we go forward through this bill that we have been working on for the last 2 years has really climaxed this particular week and has been diligently thought out over and over and over again, has been absolutely exhausted to the point where we just need to do what's right. My father, before he passed away, said the best thing is to be able to put your feet in the sand and bury them deep in the morals that you believe in. And then as we go forward, those stories of other people and the bills that pass through the legislature might sway you back and forth. People might be able to push you back and back, forward and backwards and side to side. But as long as your feet are firmly planted in the ground of your morals and your beliefs and where you should be at the end of the day when the dust settles on the right side of life, then you've done your job. We've gotten to a point with this particular bill where we all have to come to a conclusion that we have to change this. When there's somebody that's in the hospital room, in a healthcare facility room, and they will not allow family to come in to be next to their loved one before they pass away, it's just wrong. It's morally wrong, it's ethically wrong, and it's not what any of us would want. Now, having said that, am I saying anything negative about the healthcare facilities, workers, the administration, or anybody that worked in the hospitals? No, I'm not. There have been some amazing, great people that have worked there and helped all of these different families through this time. There have been nurses that have been able to FaceTime particular patients because their families weren't able to come in. There has been administration that have come in and made a phone call next to a lady giving birth because their husband was in the parking lot and was not allowed to come in. There have been volunteers that work at these healthcare facilities that have treated with the utmost respect and doing the right thing so that everybody has an opportunity to either say goodbye and in birth, say hello, and at the same time just to tell them that they love them. This is a tough bill as we go forward, and there's a lot of issues that comes down from the federal funding all the way down to the state. But I'm thankful for the group that we've had in this particular body that has come together to say what is important for the state of Alabama and for all Alabamians. As we go forward, we want to continue to make this bill the best that we possibly can, and that we are working as we speak together to be able to pass SB 2, which is a bill that I filed last week in special session. I think that is so important that people throughout the whole state realize that their voice is heard and that we're doing the right thing here in the Alabama State Senate. The people that we represent, you see a lot of them, especially on the first row right here, that have been with me the whole time. If you were out today, of the people in this particular body, you've seen the Republican women. I've not had one of them come by that have not said, congratulations, we want your bill to pass. We've not had one person that did not come by and tell me a story that's happened to them. SB 2 is something that means something. It matters. It matters to the people that hear this, that this bill affects, how their mental health is, if they had someone that had passed away. It affects the patient if they had gotten better and gotten out, how that affects their mental health. And this isn't just a bill that we pass on this black and white paper that is about money or economic development or roads. This is something that affects the hearts of the people that listen to what we say down here, and that they know that it matters and that this bill matters to them, their family, their friends, and as we go forward. I'm excited to be able to be the sponsor of SB 2. I'm excited as we go forward that this bill is going to pass this session at some point. I'm thankful that we have got the right leadership, and with the leadership of the Pro Tem's office, the leadership of a lot of the other colleagues that I have in the Senate, the leadership of the Lieutenant Governor's office has allowed all of us to come together to be able to produce a bill that allows every stakeholder, every patient, every family, and every loved one that goes into the hospital, that they are being heard and that this is going to be handled in this particular session. Sometimes in the state Senate, you don't get exactly what you want at times. Sometimes you hold out to get something even better. And I feel like I've done that to be able to make the best agreement that I possibly can for everybody and for everyone that lives in Alabama and for all Alabamians that are dealing with this situation. As we go forward anyway, I'm excited in the state Senate that we're going to make a change this year and very soon that affects every one of us. And so that the people that have passed on, the people that are still living know, and their family that are still living know that we've heard them and that we care and that we're going to change what has now outgrown our original bill as the Harold Sox bill into the new Harold Sox bill. I think there's a few people on the other side over here that would like to speak.
Senator Gudger,
Yeah,
would you like to recognize Bonnie Sachs in the gallery?
if we can, I'd like
Yeah,
to. be
wife.
able to-
Could you please stand, Bonnie? That is Harold Sachs' bill. This is the wife of Harold Sachs.
Harold Sachs.
Yes. Thank you. Welcome to Alabama Senate. All right. Back to you, Senator Gudger.
Thank you.
You open for dialogue or?
Definitely.
Okay.
All right, Senator Smitherman, you're recognized.
Thank you. Look, I have a concern, and I want you to, you can address it, if you so choose, and in any shape, form, or fashion. Let me say that to you first. But I have a concern in that. Let me say this. I'm trying to remember, because I want to be accurate, so I may not have the accurateness of what I'm getting ready to tell you about where it was and when it happened.
Yes, sir.
But I went to, and I don't know if it was a visit or I was there for another purpose, but I went to the hospital. And, well, let me back out and say this before I ask the question. I saw in practice what you are trying to address. I had a client who was in an auto accident that his parents, I knew both of them, and unfortunately I knew both of them because I also was the attorney dealing with the divorce, okay? So, but they had a struggle in getting in there to see their son because it was during the COVID time and about getting in. I actually went, and I'm trying to say again, I now remember I went to a certain hospital and I could not get in because of the restrictions that you addressing. And actually, I couldn't get in the whole building. I had to sit outside on a bench, and which, I'm not beneath sitting on a bench or sitting outside. I'm glad it ain't today, because I don't know about down here, but up there where we are, it's 31 degrees, 32 degrees cold up there. But so I had to share that with you to say that I understand what you're trying to do, and I support that part.
Yeah.
But the part that concerns me was that if hospital staff, you see me say if hospital staff has to have some kind of checks and balances on their health condition. In my case, I had to show the card where I took all these shots, for the COVID stuff, for prevention.
Right.
And what kind of checks and balances that we gonna have when somebody, you can answer it, when somebody come off the streets, coughing, mucus running, I'm gonna give you a egregious situation. Coughing, mucus running, got a fever, and then they're just allowed to walk in there.
Yeah.
I didn't say that you shouldn't have somebody who would not like that, but that's a concern that I have that based on my experiences, that I have that concern that there's nothing so far I see, and you can correct me now, because I may not see it, that has some kind of check
And balance.
Oh, yeah, about whether somebody, I know you can't know what's in everybody. I understand that. I know that. But when you got obvious signs, you know how folks say, you sniffing and got a cold, then just stay away.
Right.
You know, we even tell our players on the team that.
Yeah.
Look, you talking about, they say, well, I got a little, look, don't come to practice. Well, I don't want nobody else, whatever, the cold, flu, whatever, I don't want nobody to get it when you get straight calm. So
Well, I've got it. So the last time that we've had this, we took it, thank you, through committee. And then after committee, and actually Senator Marika was able to talk to me a little bit about that, saying, listen, what if somebody comes in that is obviously needs to be tested for COVID or they have the flu? We put back into the bill through our drafts. And as I go through these drafts with the hospital association, with the nursing home association, and through the liability side of this with the trial lawyers, that was brought up. And so what we've been added to this particular bill is that before I say this, hospitals and the healthcare facilities in the state of Alabama are there to take care of us, obviously, and they do a good job of that. One thing that they have limited was their visitation, which is what this whole bill is about, is visitation.
right, I understand.
So there's two things that I would like to go down this little rabbit hole with you. There's visitors and essential caregivers. If there are visitors come in, let's think as visitors as you're in the hospital, but your church group comes to see you, the general public, okay? Essential caregivers is your wife if you need to go to the hospital. She is going to be your essential caregiver that gets to come in there for at least 2 hours a day, all right, plus the visitation hours, if there are some. But I'm going to take that one step further to answer your question. That one step further is, God forbid this happens, but I'm just going to, for example, you have cancer, your white blood cells are low.
Can I stop you right there?
Yeah,
Say if somebody, don't say if you.
that's right. So if somebody, thank you for that. If somebody has that, the doctor, through the amendments that we've made, still has the opportunity not to allow the visitors to come there. So you don't want children that's been in school with around flu season coming up to someone that has their white blood cell low, their count low, right? Because you don't want them to get sick. But they can't deny through this bill an essential caregiver, which is your wife or a family member or a loved one or a child. And that can also rotate, because if someone was in the hospital, chances are, and let's say it was my family, I have 2 sisters. We would rotate every day because I can't take off work for 5 days at a time. But my sisters and I are close, so we all could rotate 1 day at a time to help with that. So that's in this bill that answers that question. But the hospitals, through their policies and procedures, are able to check for any type of physical problems that are associated with somebody walking in that is coughing, having a flu-like symptoms before they even get to these rooms. If the patient is too sick to have anybody come in, then they can cut off the visitors, but they cannot cut off the essential caregiver, which is what this bill is about.
Now, as it relates to the visitors,
Okay.
not the essential care
That's right.
person. And I understand that because one situation sticks out with me
Okay.
that
We all,
I had a person that was in my office, and the relatives was in the office too. I knew them, I knew them quite well. And then the next week, the person went to the hospital, and they found out that they had COVID. And they went in on a Sunday, and they died on a Tuesday. And none of the relatives could ever be there during that process, whatsoever. Daughter, no one. So that kind of moved me right there to.
and that's what this bill corrects.
Yeah, and I knew that's what you were doing there. Now, the one question I have, and this is a lawyer question, but you could answer it. You don't have to be no lawyer to answer. The part with the visitors, does it say, as it relates to the hospital, does it say may do whatever the process is, let them come in, or does it say shall? Shall, they don't have any options. As much as we are talking about they can do this, that, and the other. May, then that gives them the authority to say yes or no. What does it say in that relationship to those two words?
Thank you for asking that question. On visitors, it is may. On essential caregiver, it shall have to let them in.
Okay.
So you have both areas there, and it's a balance, right? And we're hoping that particular treating physicians don't go to an extreme and just say, we're not going to let any visitors no matter what. But in the bill, you've got visitors that may, and you have essential caregivers that shall have opportunities to come in and see their loved ones.
And who can pull the trigger? Who's the one that pulled that trigger on May?
Treating physician, who is the doctor of that particular patient.
What about the hospital itself? That doctor ain't gonna be there all the time.
You want to add that? I'd love for you to add it before.
I would like for the hospital itself, because they may, I'm just trying, I know this sounds strange, I'm a lawyer when I say this, but we want to shed them from any appearance of liability unless they make the call. You understand what I'm saying?
What we've gone through this exhaustion of the different drafts for the last 2 weeks is the clinical team is probably the best wording for that, because that's the head nurse that's there every day, and then also the treating physician is probably the best.
So the hospital, the hospital clinical team.
Yeah, the hospital clinical team and treating physician, maybe both of those together to answer that question.
Okay.
But I'll be more than happy to work with you on that.
Okay, you want me to wait and then we do some, you want me to try to get something ready now? What you want me to do?
Let's wait on that.
Okay, well, we're not getting ready to vote on it right now, are we?
We're not. There's only a one bill calendar today, so my goal would be to love to bring this up, but I think that we're going to have to talk about this today.
Okay, we'll get together.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it, Senator.
Thanks, Senator Smitherman. All right, Senator Gudger, you still yield?
I still yield, yes, sir.
All right, Senator Gavan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, first of all, Senator Gudger, I want to thank you for the yeoman's work that you've done on this.
Thank you.
To get this bill, it's got a lot of moving, or it's had a lot of moving parts due to the issues and sensitivities of it. And you've done a tremendous job getting it in the posture. And we are in posture that if we could get some cooperation where we could pass this special session. And I would like to encourage that to be passed this special session. I understand that we're obviously priorities in the governor's call, but the Constitution allows us to take up at a higher threshold. But at a 2/3 threshold, we have the power to take up this bill. And I would encourage the body that we need to take that power we have into consideration, and let's go ahead and get this done while all of the parties are in agreement into the terms of it. And so I just want to thank you again for your work on this, and let me know how I can help you.
Thank you, Senator Gavan.
All right, thanks, Senator Gavan. Senator Gudger.
I still yield, Senator.
All right, Senator Barfoot.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Gudger, I too appreciate the countless hours of time that you put into this bill, the importance that it has not only in this body specifically to certain members or all members that should have, but to the citizens of the state of Alabama. You know, nobody could have predicted the COVID pandemic. Nobody could have probably predicted the havoc that it would have caused on the citizens of this state and the nation. But one thing is for certain, when you're at that end of life stage or you're in the hospital for an extended period of time, doctors are important. No question about it. Medicine's important. But the relief that you can get from your family by sitting there, a caregiver who comes to your bedside, looks in your eyes and talks to you, who gives you words of encouragement, and that touch that they may provide in essential care. So I applaud you for that. I am 100% supporting your effort to get this bill passed. I will also say that I think in one of the drafts, and you've taken this into account, that if someone's incapacitated, they cannot name a caregiver. So you've made steps, I think appropriate steps, as to who might have that authority to name a caregiver on their behalf. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think the delineation is first and foremost, if there is a guardianship that's been established, whoever that guardian is could make that decision on your behalf. And the second step down from that would be if there's an existing power of attorney, that person who had that durable power of attorney could then choose that essential caregiver for you. And then lastly, if neither one of those are in place, there is a order of preference, spouse, child, parent, who could come in at that point and name an essential caregiver. Am I correct about that?
That is correct. And then also they can rotate just like a regular sponsor could do for the essential caregiver. So if that particular, say all the way down the list to the end, the child was the one that was going to be the essential caregiver, they can have him or her as a sponsor and say, my family will still rotate every day. And so the hospital would have to agree with that, which they have at this point and have worked great with us up to this point, hospitals and healthcare facilities.
So you wouldn't, so in other words, there wouldn't necessarily have to be an essential caregiver named one time, and over the next 2, 3, 4 months, whatever the case may be, that essential caregiver could change.
It can change daily. And so what you're asking about is the sponsor. And if the sponsor, which probably should be in the hospital policies and procedures during visitation guidelines, from that sponsor gets to nominate how that rotation should happen so that there's not 10 different contacts of a family going to the hospital or to the treating physician or the head nurse. You're going to have one person that is the spokesman for that family, and then they will work with that particular hospital, say, this is our rotation. Whether they are able to do that, the patient's able to do it themselves, or whether they're incapacitated and can't, then they will have one person of that sponsor of the list that you just said of priority and be able to choose one, and they can still rotate.
Thinks that's an essential change, and I think a well-needed change, because so many times the folks who are maybe in the hospital are incapacitated and couldn't name that essential caregiver on their own. So it gives others the ability to step in for their shoes and name an essential caregiver, and I'm appreciative for that change. I just want to tell you again, I appreciate the hard work you've done, the coalition that you've built, the efforts that you put into it, and I appreciate leadership in this body and going forward to support your bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate your help.
All right, thank you, Senator Barfoot. Senator Gudger.
I'll still yield.
All right, Senator Roberts.
Mr. President.
You're recognized.
Senator Gudger.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I love you.
This has been a privilege to ride your coattails on this, and I appreciate everything you have done. There are many that'll share stories, and several of us in here have personal stories with this, and we can talk about those later. But the impact this has had on families and loved ones who've gone before us in this, I think you're going to hear from, because you've already heard from one particular family and then probably hundreds of others, but it'll come across from all the way across the state, the gratitude for getting this done and done correctly. I appreciate the way that you brought together all the players that are involved with this, that touched this and made it possible to come to an agreement. And I just applaud you for the hours upon hours that you put there, and then seeking wise counsel in the process. So I think you've handled this like a gentleman, like a senator, and I couldn't be prouder of the efforts that you've done. So my heartiest congratulations on what you're doing. And I think the support in this body and also downstairs will be overwhelming for what is being done here. So congratulations on being able to pull us together. Now we get across the finish line, but you busted your chops on this. And I just want to tell you, thank you for that.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate you. You know, there's one thing that reminds me in my brain every time I see you and we talk about this, and I know we've had some passionate and deep emotional talks about this particular bill, but the Holy Spirit comes around and he emerges around any patient that's there, whether someone's physical is there or whether they're not.
Yeah.
Mark chapter 16 talks about they feel the presence if you're close. There's a lot of times where we're close to our loved ones but haven't been right there, and I want to make sure you realize that Holy Spirit bridged those feelings from one person to the next. And just I appreciate your story, appreciate you as a man, and everybody in this chamber is better because you're in the Senate.
Well, I think what's amazing to me is I look up in the gallery and the interest that they have in this bill and so many others. It's more than just personal. It's the right thing to do. And to not do this, I think, was wrong. And I think the books that will be written about the way we handled the entire pandemic, it was new, so everyone was learning on the fly. But I think we will be so much better prepared in the event something like this ever happens again. And it's part of showing mercy to the person who's sick. It's part of showing mercy to the family. And we personally could not have had better care. absolutely impeccable care, and for which I'm grateful for the caregivers and everyone else there.
Amen.
But that absence of their caregiver or someone who's there to say it's going to be okay, whether they're able to respond back or not is a whole different story. But I think it takes it to a depth that we're doing what's right for humankind, and that's where the passion for this bill, I think, is going to be overwhelming. So once again, the leadership here in pulling all the groups together to get this done is a great job the first time. There's some things that just need to be cleaned up about the bill that we passed previously, and I think we've got an agreement to work those things out. And with that in place, Alabama will be a better place because of it.
It's never the wrong time to do the right thing, Dan.
Correct.
You well know, and I appreciate all your help on this bill.
And you know that statement that's famous, that a man with an argument is at the mercy of a man with an experience, and or woman with an experience with an argument's at the mercy of a woman with an experience. But you can't even say it that a man with an argument is at the mercy of a woman with an experience. So you can say it however you want to say it, but it's absolutely true. And we have many in our chamber that have had that personal experience. And so I think that's what will come forth when this legislation passes. So we go from there. These details have been numerous to pull everyone together, and great job.
Thank you that you're my friend. Thank you that you've helped on this, Senator Roberts. And I thank you for helping me be the spearhead to continue to push this through the Senate and through the legislature of the House so that we're able to get this to the governor's desk. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Senator Gudger. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Roberts. Senator Gudger.
I still yield.
All right, Senator Weaver.
So as a nurse and a caregiver and someone who's spent my life in healthcare, I want to thank you for the conversations that you and I have had on this subject.
Thank you.
As the lone Republicans, you really have put your heart and soul into this. How many hours have you worked on this bill?
There's no telling. The #1 bill I've ever done.
Well, you really have poured your heart and soul into it. And I want to thank you for the work that you've done. I want to tell you again how much I appreciate the conversations that we've had related to this. You know, there are times that here in the Senate, we do a lot of work on bills, and then we say, how did that really affect my constituency? How did that really affect the people of the state?
Right.
Well, I will tell you, this is a bill that in my heart, I know is going to affect many families and many people in this state. And it's going to be one of these things that we can look at and say, wow, we really did something good.
Right.
So I want to thank you for your work. I want to thank you for the conversations that we've had. And as you go forward, I'm proud to support you in your efforts.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate you coming and saying that.
All right, thanks, Senator Weaver. Senator Gudger.
I still yield, sir.
All right, Senator Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. President. The gentleman from Coleman. I am in awe of how you've handled this piece of legislation. This is tough.
That's a lot coming from you. That's good. I like this, Senator.
And I'll tell you this, and this is, I really, and everybody in this chamber, but I look up to you, and that's not a short joke. Really, the way you've navigated this, and it's tough in a special session. It's tough to leverage, you know, what is a bunch of money on the table for some of these entities, and what's right, and push an issue that is so important to so many families in the state of Alabama. You've done it well, and we're going to pass your bill. We may not pass it today, but we're going to pass your bill. I feel it. And if you can't feel that energy in this chamber, you know, and especially the ladies upstairs that I know are passionate about this is something I feel confident about. You've put the energy, the time, the effort, the heart, the passion into this piece of legislation, and your colleagues are with you. And I'm confident that this is something we're going to get done for the families of the state of Alabama. I'm impressed.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Elliott. All right, Senator Gudger.
I want to say thank you to this body, like I said earlier, and for helping me get to this point where we're able to do this. And as we go forward, obviously we have one or two more people that would like to speak, but we're getting to the point where even though we're not able to pass this in special session, sometimes you hold up on your chocolate cake because you got dinner coming. And I feel like that's where we are on some agreements that we've been able to put together through the Pro Tem's office and working diligently with me. the last 2 weeks, the Lieutenant Governor's office, and just the leadership that's here and our colleagues on the Senate floor. So I want to say to everyone on this floor, thank you for your help and helping me bring this, the right bill at the right time to help everyone in Alabama. I yield at this point.
All right, Senator Kelly.
Senator Gudger, I just want to thank you for the bill.
Thank you.
For someone that's been directly affected by this, my father-in-law died alone. He shouldn't have died alone. Didn't have to die alone, but he did. And so if this bill had been in place, my father-in-law would have died with his daughter, myself, and my mother-in-law around him. No one should have to die alone. And this bill will ensure that no one has to go through that under similar circumstances of what we've had in the past, like this again. And so I just want to say thank you from a family that is directly involved and had to deal with this and what it means to my wife and my family, as well as others in the gallery and the others affected. Just a simple thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Senator.
Thanks, Senator Kelly. All right, Senator Gudger.
One last comment before the pro tem is with me, and that is, pro tem, you can also attest to this, but the stakeholders that have been in our offices and going through this, the Hospital Association, the Nursing Home Association, the trial lawyers, everyone has come to the table. They've all had to give a little bit to be able to get this bill to where that it is. And they've worked diligently with us. We've worked together with, like I said, the Pro Tem's office, Lieutenant Governor's office, for us to be able to get to an agreement so that we're ready right after special session to file this bill again, get the full bill, so that all of the issues that we've talked about from Senator Smitherman to our other senators are in one bill, and we're ready to go. But I wanted to say thank you, and thank you to the stakeholders that are up there, and then especially I want to say thank you to the Sox family that's here with me today, and for Miss Emmy doing everything she can with Poppy's Purpose. And so as we go forward, I just want to say thank you for help being an inspiration to everybody that's on this floor. I yield.
All right. Thanks, Senator Gudger. Senator Reed.
President, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let me add my word of appreciation to Senator Gudger, as well as each of you who have spoken on this bill, those that are in the gallery that are so interested in this legislation, those that have shared personal issues, personal stories that are related to this topic. I want to thank each of them that have been involved and engaged. We've moved through a difficult topic. We've been able to navigate this, Senator, in a way that you and I agree is very positive for the people of Alabama. I agree with you. The stakeholders that are engaged here, nursing homes, hospitals, trial lawyers, others that had a stake in this legislation, have come to the front of the line and been willing to work with you, work with me, and being able to put this forward. It's going to be my commitment to you, and I've also had conversation with the Speaker of the House of Representatives that as soon as we get into the regular session, which will be Tuesday of next week, then this legislation is my intent that it's on a hot rail moving quickly through this body for passage. And so that is what I've committed to you and committed to others, and now commit to the body that this is a topic that we need to be focused on. I also want to say this, Senator, and I want the members to be prepared for this because I think it speaks volumes to the way I know you feel. There's a lot of healthcare workers in this state that did so much during the pandemic to be able to hold the hand, hold the phone, do the FaceTime, whatever was required in the midst of this such a difficult circumstance, much created and caused by the federal government, as you're aware. Those healthcare workers did everything they could to be able to make those situations better, as is their calling as healthcare professionals. So as we close out with this discussion, and I'm going to recognize or ask the president to recognize Senator Albritton so we can get on to paying off debts that we owe to ourselves. But I want us to give a standing ovation to healthcare workers that did everything they could, as many of these that know and understand that are with us today, to do all possible to be able to support those that they care for. So let's do that. Thank thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Senator, we'll continue to work on this process. Appreciate your leadership.
Thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
Pro Tem.
Thanks, Senator Reed. Thanks, Senator Gudger.
Thank you,
All right,
Mr.
Senator Albritton.
Mr. President, I'm here with Senate Bill 1. This is not even a one page, it's a one paragraph where we're paying off the Alabama Trust Fund. We've talked about this before, and I think Senator Chambliss, wanted to say a few words. Is that appropriate?
Absolutely.
All right, I'd invite him to come forward. He's been involved with the matters dealing with the general fund since day one, since he showed up, and he's actually been able to get a bill or two passed. So I'd yield to my friend, Senator Chambliss.
All right, Senator Chambliss.
So, thank you, Mr. President. Senator, Mr. Chairman, we thank you for your tireless effort on this and other financial matters. One of the things that my parents taught me, and I'm sure a lot of your parents taught you, is that you take care of your debt, you pay your debts, you try to keep low debt, and but sometimes you need that helping hand for whatever reason. In this particular case, we had that situation through the Great Recession. So, having grown up in Prattville and watched state government all my life and watching the news with my dad most nights, I saw a lot of things, and I remember several of those, and I won't go, I'm a firm believer in when the car is sold, don't keep talking. And here I am anyway, because this is not a historic day yet. But this is part of the historic process that's going to go to finally repay the debt that we owe. We as citizens of the state of Alabama, and fortunately we owe it to ourselves, thanks to the forethought of many people that came before us and put in the trust funds so many years ago, and we're blessed as a state to have that, and we should always protect that. This is a step in our acknowledgement that it is a good thing and we want to protect it. So when this bill is passed and when it's signed into law, it will be the culmination of a lot of legislators and executive branch officials that have put time, energy, and effort into the financial changes that allow us to have $60 million. It wasn't that long ago that we didn't have $60 million. We were $250 million in the hole, trying to find money, trying to find ways that we can balance the budget. And through your leadership, other leaders, Senator Orr, who was in the general fund at a time, Senator Tripp Pittman, Representative Klaus, and I know I'm forgetting somebody, our fine folks at LSA, we're in this position. So I didn't want us to just gloss over and pass this so quickly without stopping just briefly to think about what a big deal this is. Many people said we would never do this. And honestly, there's ways that we could have gotten around it and not done it.
It was thought about.
It was and discussed, but here we are. And I believe a unified body, a unified legislator, a unified state government in doing this. So thank you for your efforts and leading us and guiding us to this point. And I am just excited to be able to say yay here in just a minute. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Senator Chambliss. Senator Albritton, you yield?
I yield to Senator Smitherman.
All right, Senator Smitherman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for yielding to me. I'll say that, I like to say up front so you can relax a little bit. I'm with you 100% of what you're trying to do with this bill, okay? So that's why I wanted to say that first. But you know the but. You being a lawyer, you know what but means when I say that. But look, and you don't have to answer me now. but because it's germane, see, I know how we have tried to kind of keep things germane, so this was just a germane moment. I just wanted you to say it so you'll know that. Now, that's where I like to see when you do that. I know you tune in the way I'm saying it and everything. Look, we got all this money in the general fund, and yes, we do. You know, I'm aware of what we got. You know, if I can find money, you know, I can see money we don't have to find. We got plenty of money. It's about time for us to come up with 10, 12, I think it was about 12, give or take $1.2 million. It was about $12 million to fund all our needs in this state for judges. It makes no sense to have all these millions of dollars sitting over there worrying about what we're gonna get somebody money back over here and some money back over here when we got a real live need in the whole state of Alabama. And that is, they're saying that we don't have enough judge here, we need a judge over here. That's what this money is designed to do, is to take care of those needs, except in this situation, you, not you, you being you mean us.
You're somebody.
We are going to make 4 times that money back off the court systems if we have the judges to handle those cases versus they sitting up there getting 3 and 4 and 5 years old. And I'm just telling you, I'm living that situation now. I'm in a case, in a 3-day trial case, that because we don't have enough judges and the judges got so many cases that started in January and could not finish, then we went back in February, and the 3rd day of it is going to be the 31st of this month when we on break, because I had to put it when we was on spring break so it wouldn't conflict with being here. So this is some people since 2018 been trying to get a divorce. 2018. So I mean, this is only one person in one situation, and I know it's not isolated just to me and just to what we are doing. And we are talking about a trial in a circuit that's taking that long, and this is the circuit that they plucking out of. And yet, so if it's like this in this circuit, I can only imagine what it's like in other circuits. So I'm saying, as a body, it's time for us to go on and put the money there and get everybody the judges they need. It makes no sense for us to have hundreds of millions of dollars and won't take 12 where we're going to be getting 48. I just said 48. I'm not exact, but fiscal officer can correct me on the exact amount. We're going to get 3-4 times the money back to go into the general fund, and know everybody else will be able to be serviced. That I just don't understand that. So I want to bring that to everybody's attention as we go through this year with these extra revenue funds, that we're not talking about taking money from anybody. We're not talking about putting anybody in any disadvantage. We're trying to put the citizens in the state into an elevated, accelerated advantage of being able to go to court. And that's why I picked a divorce. I'm not talking about an auto accident. I'm not talking about something of a light nature. I'm talking about families. So this family now has gone through this with these children and with everything else for the last 5 years in turmoil because they can't get it heard and resolved in the court. And because it's not enough days, because there's not enough judges. So all I'm saying is that let's please, as a body, look carefully in that this year, early on, so that we can try to provide whatever anybody needs in this state, so that all of us can have the adequate kind of legal participation that we can, so our citizens will not have to go through a situation I just mentioned. I've seen situations in personal injuries where because you don't have enough judges, it takes so long, the person died. Be dead. Now you got to deal with an estate. I'm dealing with one right now where the person who was involved in a situation like that died. They died from diabetes. And it's been all those years. Now my role done flipped and I'm representing the estate. instead of the person that was there. So I'm asking again, please, please, I don't mind saying please. I get on my knees if I thought it would actually become fruition. That's how much I don't mind doing that, asking. Please, let's look at this and see how we can direct these monies to take care of some of these situations and be able to get the return that it'll bring back. So that's really what I'm speaking about at this particular time. And I'm not putting you on the spot to give me the date and all that. But I'm not just at you. I'm really talking to everybody in here, because you and I have had general conversations about it. Not specific, but we've had some very good general conversations. So I just wanted to say that. But in conclusion, I'm with you 100% in paying this money back. You know, I just want you to know that. I'm not talking about not pay the money back and do that. Not at all. You know, but I'm talking about all these new projects that come out of the woodwork somewhere. You know what I'm saying? And they may be worthy, good things. But in our pecking order, we have a need and not a want. And I'm just asking us to please look closely at how we can address that part of it, the money part of it. I know there's other issues and other things, you know, and I think that they need to be addressed. But I can just give you an idea. What I always said in conclusion is that about why I would like for us to have some permissive legislation. Here I said permissive legislation that would allow each circuit to make a determination of whether they want to go with a weighted count or they want to spend their monies. I ain't even talking about, I don't call it your money, but I'm talking about the committee's money. I'm not even talking about the committee providing money, but their money so they can get an actual count. Because I'm involved in a case right now that I looked at it. In fact, I can tell you, it was yesterday. I had the client in the office, and I had to go over what it was, and this person here was charged with, thinking they were charged with one thing, and, you know, they had to secure that only when I got my discovery. I saw on there that they charged with 3 things. See what I mean? But guess what? And I'll bring it to your office Thursday, because, you know, I may or may not get a chance to do that this evening because we got so much to do. You know what I mean? Different things are going on. Yes. But if we get out early, if we come in 1 tomorrow and we get out early enough, then I can go back and get it. I'll bring it. You know, I'll redact their personal info. You know what I mean? They social security number and all like that. But I'll bring it to show you that they got 3 cases under 1 case number. So when the weighted mean counted, they count numbers. They ain't gonna touch those other 2, but that judge got to deal with all 3 of them. So that's why I said it, that if nobody else feels the need to do it in their circuit, that's why I said permissive. That's fine. But I want to get the numbers straight where I am. I want the actual numbers straight I am. So the reason I said permissive, because then that can be a part of how it affects whatever county, I mean circuit, not county, that decides to do that. It don't have to be us. It can be somewhere in any other part of the state as well. Yes. So that was just a caveat. That was why I was really standing. I was standing about the money. So I look forward to all of us seriously addressing that, you know, and looking at how we can take this, you know, excess money that we have, that then we can move forward to try to solve the needs problem that exists right now in all our circuits. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for yielding, allowing me the opportunity to address that issue, and I look forward to voting with you on this particular bill.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, sir.
With that, I'd move for a third reading, final passage using long roll.
All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Conley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chastain. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott, Ms. Figures, Mr. Gavan, Mr. Gudger, Mr. Hatcher, Mr. Hovey, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Livingston, Mr. Milson, Mr. Orr, Mr. Price, Mr. Reed, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Schofield, Mr. Sessions, Mr. Shellnut, Mr. Singleton, Mr. Smitherman, Mr. Stewart, Mr. Stutz, Mr. Wagner, Ms. Weaver, Mr. Williams,
All right, 33 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 1 passes. Thanks, Senator Albritton. All right. Senator Reed.
Mr. President,
Senator Reed.
just a moment. Mr. President, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, let me thank each of you for your diligence today. We had some good discussion today. We talked about something that's very important to many in this body and many in the legislature. Also, we were able to vote a piece of legislation that allowed us early to pay back the Alabama Trust Fund. And there was only a few of us that were here during those times that we had to borrow money from the trust fund because we didn't have enough resource for the general fund budget to operate. We're in a much different place now. We're going to get to those discussions as we move forward in this session. But I want to thank you for your effort, for your diligence today. Let me make this announcement with the appreciation of the general fund chair, is that there is a 9 a.m. general fund meeting. 9 a.m. general fund meeting in the morning. And then, Mr. President, we're going to stand adjourned until 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon.
All right, you heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
President.
Senator Reed.